When it's all said and done, life comes down to just one thing. What have you done with Jesus Christ? The world is filled with distractions. People chase careers, relationships, and success. Many people try to fill the void inside of them with religion or rituals and even good works. But Jesus never came to offer humanity just another religious system. He came to give us His life. He said in John 10:10, "I have come that they may have life and that they may have it more abundantly." And here's the best part. Jesus has already provided everything that you need. Have you received Jesus, friend? Welcome to Glorious Gospel Radio, where we focus on the good news of Jesus Christ. At Glorious Gospel Radio, we keep it simple. We teach God's Word verse by verse and chapter by chapter to help you understand the Bible, growing your faith, and live an abundant life in Jesus Christ by experiencing His grace. And so as we're studying the gospel and the good news, of course, it leads us right to the life of Jesus, the person of Jesus Himself. Because remember, friends, Jesus not only shares the gospel with us, He not only told us the gospel, Jesus Himself is the gospel. He is the good news. And so we find ourselves in John chapter 5, continuing on in a study, Jesus, Son of God. Jesus, Son of God, we're in John chapter 5. And I do encourage you, friends, if you haven't been able to join us for all of our studies, go to our website, gloriousgospelradio.com, and you can listen to the previous episodes. You can also listen to them on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts, or you can listen to the previous episodes on our church app. Just type in Calvary Chapel, Puerto Rico, download that app, and those will be right there for you. But Jesus, Son of God, we find ourselves in John chapter 5, and Jesus here is responding to an accusation from the Pharisees that He called God His own Father, making Himself equal with God. And indeed, that's what it says in John 5:18. It says, He was even calling God His own Father, making Himself equal with God. Now, friends, that accusation from the religious leaders of His day was actually true. And the reason why John points this out is because this was a pivotal issue in the life and ministry of Jesus. It continued to be an important issue in the first century in John's life, and it continues to be a very vital issue in the 21st century in our lives. And so when people come talk to you, whether they're Jehovah's Witnesses or Mormons or Muslims, Hindus, Buddhists, or atheists, and whenever you talk to somebody, friend, who says something like, well, Jesus never said He was God, or, well, the Bible never teaches that Jesus is God, these are the kinds of chapters you want to lead them to. John chapter 5, the accusation was by the Jews that Jesus called God His own Father, which was true, thereby making Himself equal with God, which is true, because God the Son is equal to God the Father in His power, authority, divinity, etc. Now, the only problem was that the Jews didn't believe that that's who Jesus actually was, but they were correct when they said, that's what you're declaring, that's what you're saying. And so for the rest of John chapter 5 and all throughout John's gospel, indeed all throughout the Old and New Testament, more than 100 times Jesus Himself, along with the prophets and the apostles, they declare that Jesus is God the Son, God in the flesh. And so bring people to John chapter 5 if they question or doubt or if they mock this beautiful truth that Jesus did indeed claim to be God the Son in the flesh. So let's pick it up, friends, in verse 19. This is where Jesus starts the discourse, this beautiful defense of His deity and His divinity. And of course, He's going to close it off in the end of the chapter, and He's going to give 5 solid witnesses that He is God, 5 solid evidences of truth and proof of His deity. So Jesus responds in verse 19, this defense of His deity, that He is the Son of God. Jesus gave them this answer, I tell you the truth, the Son can do nothing by Himself. He can do only what He sees His Father doing, because whatever the Father does, the Son also does. For the Father loves the Son and shows Him everything that He does. Yes, to your amazement, He will show Him even greater things than these. And so Jesus here, we covered those verses last time, but Jesus here, right off the bat, he is saying that I am the Son of God and I have special access to the Father. I have a special connection with the Father. And the reason that I'm doing these miracles, like healing the man, the cripple of the pool of Bethesda earlier in this chapter, the reason why I am doing this is because I have a special relationship with the Father. Jesus would say later on that I am in the Father and the Father is in me. How is that true? Why is that true? Because only Jesus is the unique, divine, eternal Son of God. And that's what he's trying to help these people understand. And so he says, the Father shows me everything that he is doing. Only God the Son could claim that, friends. Only the Son of God. And also be on your guard, because when you talk to some of these cultic groups, they say they're Christian and they're not. But one of the quickest ways to understand that the person you're talking to is in a cult or they're in a group that's suffering from false teaching, one of the quickest ways to do that is to ask them, who is Jesus to you? Who is Jesus in your group? Who do you believe Jesus to be? And if this person says that Jesus is anything less than God the Son, if they say, like the Jehovah's Witnesses, that Jesus is an angel or a creature, if they say, like the Mormons, that he is simply a man who became one of many gods, if, like the Muslims, if they say that Jesus is just a man, a lowercase prophet, or like the atheists, that he's just a historical individual, or like the Jews, that Jesus is just a crazy Jewish rabbi from history, or a Buddhist who says that he is a reincarnation of the Buddha, any of these answers, any of these bizarre, strange answers, friends, they show you that this person is under deception. They are being deceived by their group, their church, their cult, whatever they would call that. And if they say anything less than Jesus is God the Son, they might even call him the Son of God. But if you ask them, what do you mean by that? What do you mean when you say Jesus is the Son of God? And they say, oh, well, he's just a man who has become very spiritual or holy. Or he's the Son of God because he is an angel and they're called the sons of God. So be careful. They might try to use special words, but if they say or mean anything different from the fact that Jesus Christ is the eternal, divine God the Son, come to earth in flesh, to die and take away the sins of the world, to rise from the grave, defeating death and the devil, and now only he can save us. Only Jesus offers salvation. If they say anything different than that, friend, then unfortunately, they're believing a false gospel, they're under false teaching, and you need to be very, very careful and probably get away from them, but they need to get saved. They need Jesus. And Jesus is telling us here that there is no one like him, that the Father shows him everything that he does. And he says he's going to show him even greater things. And of course, this would be the resurrection. In verse 21, Jesus continues, and Jesus says, for just as the Father raises the dead and gives them life, even so the Son, again, speaking of himself in the third person, the Son gives life to whom he is pleased to give it. Friends, this is an amazing claim. Jesus, again, clearly said, he just clearly stated, clearly identified himself with the Son of God and the Son of Man from the Old Testament scriptures. Where does that appear, you ask? Well, the Son is talked about in Proverbs 30, verse 4. The Son of God is talked about in Psalm chapter 2, verses 7 and 12. The Son is referenced in Psalm 45 and in Psalm 110, and the Son of Man is specifically spoken about in Daniel 7, verses 13 and 14. The only reason I say that to you, friends, the references are all over the Old Testament scriptures. Jesus is saying, I am the one who was to come. I am the one that Isaiah and Ezekiel and all the prophets and Moses, I am the one that they all spoke about. And here I am standing before you right in your midst, and you don't believe who I am. He would go on to say in the end of this chapter, you don't believe Moses. You don't believe the scriptures. You don't have the Spirit of God. You don't know God the Father. He would say, you are in disbelief. You're rejecting the revelation of God passed down to you through thousands of years through the scriptures. Jesus is essentially saying, my Father told you he would send me. My Father told you that I would come, that the Father would make me, the Son of God, the Messiah, ultimately the King over the world, the King of the universe, and here I am in your midst. And you're rejecting me, you're disbelieving me. But Jesus, he just goes for broke and he doesn't hold back. He says, you want to know who I am? You want to know how much power the Father has given me? He says, just as the Father raises the dead and gives them life. In other words, just as the Father can give resurrection, that he can physically raise people from the dead, and of course, spiritually give someone spiritual new life, just as the Father raises the dead and gives them life, Jesus is going to equate himself directly in equality to God the Father in this area. He says, even so, the Son gives life to whom he is pleased to give it. Now, I would imagine that in that day, right there in that moment, the Jews gasped, they put their hands over their mouth, and they cried out blasphemy. They couldn't believe it, that Jesus here is declaring equality with God. You see, this is what they accused him of, remember? Back in verse 18, let's read it again. You are calling God your own Father, making yourself equal with God. And Jesus, essentially, we could paraphrase, and Jesus would say, well, that's right. Actually, it's much greater than that. Just as the Father raises the dead and gives them life, I do it too. The Son gives life to anyone to whom he is pleased to give it. They thought it was blasphemy, but you know what? It was reality. It was reality, it was truth, and the prophesied Son of God, predicted more than 300 times in the Old Testament scriptures, was right in front of them, and they missed him. Right in front of them, and they rejected, they disbelieved. Friend, what about you? Are you rejecting Jesus? Are you believing him? Are you receiving him? Hopefully you've received Christ and you're a Christian, you're born again, but are you believing the scriptures that he has taught you, spoken to you? Do you believe who Jesus is? Since he is God the Son, are you walking in faith with him, friend? I don't say that to condemn you. I say that to encourage you. Do you believe he can answer that prayer? Do you believe that if he wants to, he can come through for you? He can part that ocean? He can make a way? He can do it for you? Friend, they were in unbelief and rejection, but let us walk in belief and in full trust because Jesus is none other than God the Son. Friends, come back and join us next time as we continue on in this important and vital series, Jesus, Son of God, in John chapter 5. But in the meantime, I encourage you to go to our website, gloriousgospelradio.com. There's a plethora, a huge library of free resources in English and in Spanish, all for free, and you can download and have all of them as our gifts to you. And friends, feel free to give us a call at 787-720-3308. Again, 787-720-3308. And be sure to come back next time and join us right here on Glorious Gospel Radio. See you then.